welcome our final speaker, Rastko Ciric.
Hello, is this, it seems to be working. All right, so let's begin this out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a visualization software that I've been working on over the past year or so. And basically, I see. So, scientific visualizations can help researchers interpret geometrically structured data and results. In brain imaging, data are commonly structured by a number of different geometries, and these include, among others, regularly sampled image volumes, mesh surface reconstructions, and brain networks. Unfortunately, expressive 3D visualization libraries are often either, and I guess there's advantages to different kinds of libraries, obviously, but a lot of the expressive 3D visualization libraries are often either oriented toward interacting with data through GUIs rather than a programmatic generation of reproducible visualization artifacts. Number two, they're often linked to proprietary platforms like MATLAB, and number three, they're highly specialized sometimes to particular geometric data types. So to overcome these deficiencies, we developed this Python library for three-dimensional brain visualization. So in contrast with some of these other visualization libraries, basically, which typically expose a subset of pre-built high-level routines, our system is a compositional visualization engine that instead presents a simple language of functional visualization atoms called primitives. Each primitive changes the way that the core plotter interprets data. So for instance, by changing the geometry of the visualization or the form of the output takes, interactive or static. Users can build up a new visualization protocol by composing these primitives together. So how does this work? As a user, the workflow of this visualization system has 3 steps. First, we use the plotDef function to define a new protocol from the bank of primitives implemented in the software. Next, we invoke our protocol by providing data and aesthetic properties. Finally, we receive some artifact, a visualization representation of a dataset or scene. By changing the composition of the protocol, we can visualize, for example, a brain atlas, or we can plot multiple layers of data on the same geometry to visually evaluate correspondences. We can also change the geometry, for instance, to accommodate volumetric brain data rather than surface-based brain data. And it's also straightforward to change the kind of artifact that we get. For instance, we can design a protocol that returns snapshots of fixed orthographic views in a data set. Alternatively, we can easily write a protocol that produces an HTML file that's both interactive and persistent, making it easy thus for scientists to distribute interactive data and results. The visualization engine also includes a figure builder API, which programmatically arranges output artifacts into an editable multi-panel SVG figure. It works in 2 steps. First, the user specifies a layout by combining cells using this algebra of non-commutative infix operations. Second, the user annotates the layout using metadata emitted by the visualization engine. This annotation is used to semantically match products of the visualization protocol to cells of the layout. So let's walk through a more detailed example from our own work of how this visualization system might be used. Say we have some model that we're training to learn brain parcellations from data, and say we want to do some model introspection every few training steps. So we want to visually check on the model's progress. The compositional architecture of our visualization engine is well matched to this setting because we can compose or define our protocol at the time we initialize our model, and then we can repeatedly invoke our protocol to produce a new artifact whenever we complete a training epoch. Since we want to have a representative set of views on the brain, we first plan a figure layout that includes medial and lateral views isolating each cerebral hemisphere and a dorsal view that displays both hemispheres together. We compose the desired figure from cells using the layout algebra. Under the hood, a figure layout is represented as a binary tree whose leaves are cells, and each non-leaf node specifies how to join its children with a split orientation, the split location attribute. Constructing the layout we want is straightforward, requiring only 2 lines of code as shown here. We then semantically annotate each cell to specify its desired content. Each invocation of the visualization engine returns not only a scene representation, but also metadata detailing the expected content of each scene. For instance, the hemisphere and the view. Semantic annotation uses these metadata to specify an assignment of scenes to cells. Now that we've specified and annotated the layout of our figure, we need to build up the visualization protocol itself, using plotdef to compose primitives. We use the primitive save figure to structure the outputs using the layout we defined. The parcellation that we're learning is surface-based, so we'll add a primitive that interprets input data accordingly, surf scalars from array. We also want to interpret the input data set as a parcellation, and we want to track the changes in parcel boundaries as the model learns. So we thus choose the corresponding primitive building blocks, parcellate, color map, and draw surface boundary. Finally, nesting our primitives in add surface overlay enables simultaneously overlaying multiple data sets in the same surface geometry. The protocol that we've composed is a function. It's reusable, and it has a documentation string like a normal Python function. It takes arguments familiar to users of high-level plotters, which enable the configuration of aesthetic properties like color, transparency, and in the case of network geometries, node and edge radius. So what if we want to visualize probability maps of each individual parcel we learn? In this case, we can parameterize the save figure primitive with a group specification. This group specification automatically replicates the figure layout over entities present in the metadata and also handles pagination of the figures. We mostly focus on surfaces in this example, but the visualization engine also contains primitives for visualizing data structured as a cloud of points or a network. There are also several primitives that automatically select the camera angle for static visualizations using heuristics like peak finding or turntable rotations. One eventual objective of our software is to support fully programmatic figure construction. So we also include primitives that can inject graphical elements created exogenously, for instance, arbitrary SVG schematics or figures created using pyplot libraries like matplotlib and Seaborn. And if you aren't satisfied with the programmatically rendered figure, it's still saved as an editable SVG file, so you can make manual adjustments afterward. Just for fun, to demonstrate the versatility of this engine, we composed some protocols in the approximate styles of some of our favorite existing libraries. So for example, if you like ggSeg, primitives like draw surface boundary and scatter into parcels can give you a ggSeg-like plot that ingests parcel-valued data arrays. Similarly, you can get surfplot-like functionality out of the box using the add overlay primitives to layer different data sets over one another. If you like Nylarn's glass brain visualizations for volumetric data, you can get something similar using our point cloud geometry. And if you're familiar with BrainNet Viewer but prefer a more programmatic approach, our network geometries can also produce similar plots. So to conclude, some caveats and limitations. There are many geometries that we don't yet handle, like vector fields, volumetric grids, ROI reconstructions, streamlines, among others. The good news is that we've designed the system to be extensible, and it's built on top of the versatile and intuitive PyVista library, which does have support for these geometries. So it's really just a matter at this point of writing the primitives to expose these at our level rather. So the documentation also is currently very, very sparse because it's a pretty new library, but it's also an opportunity for an easy way to become involved, become an author on the software if you want to become involved as a contributor. The visualization engine is also basically one piece of a larger ecosystem that eventually aims to produce a sort of informatics platform for neuroimaging in the age of deep learning. We have another poster here that showcases an in-development library that uses the same compositional framework, basically to assemble workflows that prepare neuroimaging datasets for ingestion by tensor libraries for online training of models. This is in an earlier stage of development. Come check it out Wednesday or Thursday if it sounds interesting. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you'd like to become involved, if you have a use case that you'd like to discuss. We'd love to hear from you and to get more people involved in this. There's a link here and on our poster for a tutorial that you can try out. It's a Jupyter notebook that basically walks through. It's sort of a constructive example that builds up, increasingly advanced visualization by composing primitives progressively. Yeah, and I'll open the floor to questions now.
That's really cool work. Very impressive.
Thank you.
The one thing that I would like to see added to this is curvilinear sections.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So it's like sections, like slices, for instance?
So, well, at a fixed depth from the cortex. So you might take a brain and say cut away 5 millimeters, or basically look at a surface that's 5 millimeters in from the cortical surface, like a
Got it.
smooth cut.
Got it.
That's what I mean by curvilinear section. So they do it, for example, the Rogue Research crowd and their TMS software have it. That's a commercial product. It'd be lovely to have something like that incorporated.
That would be great. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to send me an email or have somebody. It would be great to get more, like an example or something like that, and see if we can work that in as well. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. Does Hyve solve some of the performance problems of plotting in NiLearn?
Does it solve performance problems? So in terms of 3D visualization, so the back end for NiLearn is often matplotlib for some of these 3D visualizations. In that case, yes, this is built on a PyVista and VTK underneath, which could potentially even be GPU accelerated, depending on the way you build the library. It will, for those 3D visualizations, be yes, more performant in general.
Okay, cool. Any more questions? If no, let's thank Rastko again.